there are a lot of perceptions and concepts, most of them driven by the sentence, probably should hate the most. That's how we always did it. And I don't believe a single person in the company knew the real costs of giving the services as they were given. And when we started, peeling the onion and looking through it, we have seen that there are services that you might as well stay close than perform. And the second part, we took a really good look at the market. We saw, okay, so let's assume we want to stay. Where do we bring growth from? And at the time, the growth for fulfillment was much higher than the growth for green juice manufacturing. So as scary as it was, as counterintuitive as it was, as any other big superlative you can think of, you can probably be sure we went through with our board. The decision was simple once you looked at this from an emotional perspective.
Welcome to Grow Think Tank. This is the one and only place where you will get insight from the founders and the CEOs of the fastest growing privately held companies. I am the host. My name is Gene Hammett. I help leaders and their teams navigate the defining moments of their growth. Are you ready to grow?
Every company has gone through a pivot, many more than just one. You want to make sure you're prepared for those pivots by understanding what are the critical elements to navigating a business pivot. Today, our special guest is the CEO of NutriFresh Services. They were number 1361 on the Inc. list in 2021, fast growth company. But we talk with Guy Ironi to what really does it take to lead a team through a difficult pivot. And those pivots are necessary as leaders. What you'll learn inside this episode is what does it take to truly align the people to the change? Some companies are blessed with people that are adaptable. Some people are blessed with companies that are more fixed. But whatever it may be, you'll learn from inside this episode because he talks about what leadership is required to get people aligned with this new strategy. Now, he did go through this and admit that he was called crazy for what he was doing. And so that's how big this pivot was by his board, probably by certain customers and anyone in the business was calling him a little bit crazy because of this decision. But he knew in his heart that it was the right one. And his inside people were aligned to that, telling him that we have to make this change in order for the business to survive the way you want it to. So you'll learn what transparency is inside this, but you'll also learn a lot more about what does it take for you to be the leader that can navigate a pivot like this. Now, when you think about your own leadership, are you really crystal clear about what does it take for you to be the leader through this next phase that you're going through? Do you have the team around you that's getting the development that they need? Leadership development is a core element to your company succeeding or failing. And you want to make sure that people are aligned to the culture and you staying no turnover or low turnover. You want to make sure you have the right leadership development at all levels of the company, not just the top tier. So all those things are things that I work with inside of my business. I love to help you figure out what's most necessary for you to grow as a company, figure out what your blind spots are, and help you do this. I have a very specific pattern of conversations and questions that we go through to uncover what's going on to help you identify what's missing or what that blind spot is. Inside that, we'll have that conversation. It's absolutely high-level service for you, and it's all about your growth. Nothing about me selling you services or coaching or anything like that. All that's pushed to the side because I want to serve you. I want to connect with you and get to know you to see if you're a fit for our company down the road. All you have to do is go to genehammett.com and schedule your call, and just do that today if you want to be a stronger leader and to be the kind of leader that aligns people to big pivots like today's conversation. Now, here's the interview with Guy. Hi, Guy. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Fantastic. We're going to have a great conversation today about a major pivot and how do you align your people when you go through tough times. But before we jump into that, tell us about your company, NutriFresh Services.
So, hi, Gene. Very happy to be here. NutriFresh Services is the country's leading e-commerce fulfillment for perishable products. So, to make it simple, any food manufacturer can have a national distribution. By coming to us in one of our 12 locations, we'll aggregate the volumes from multiple manufacturers, allow you to work under the same conditions that the big boys do without having to kill first.
Well, that's definitely needed today. I guess you're working with a lot of small manufacturers that probably come big. Is there any brands that you can share that you work with?
So we work with multiple medium guys. All started very small. Regretfully, we have very strict NDAs because all of them like to say that they do their own, and the 3PL world is kind of the corner no one talks about. But it's all names that are known by everybody who listens. Think of specialty items from frozen specialty goods to the ready-made meals. Anything that needs to have special handling that will arrive within 2 days nationwide in a curated experience.
Well, I won't press for any of that NDA stuff. We don't get you in trouble. We want to dive into our topic today because I think everybody has gone through at least one pivot, if not 5 or 6 in their journey as leaders. Where do you want to start with this? Because we didn't really figure out a starting place. What is the pivot that you needed to make?
So we currently, even today, pivot probably twice a year on a smaller scale. But in NutriFresh, we had one very major pivot, full 180. We started this company with a process called HPP, which was a non-thermal shelf life extension process that catered to the fresh raw foods. At the time, the company was the largest cold pressed juice manufacturer in the country with the HPP technology. And one of its side projects was the fact that they were shipping products to consumers' homes. When we took it over during the turnaround, what we saw was manufacturing was pretty hard, and that's not something we wanted to deal with, but we identified what our strength was, which was in the pick and pack and deliver into people's homes. So what we had to do then is drop manufacturing altogether, which was complicated on many, right? You have customers that depend on you, that suddenly you stop delivering a very critical service. We had employees that we needed to make sure are okay. And most importantly, at the time, it was 80% of our revenue. So we had to go and tell the board, be comfortable. It's 80% of our revenue, but we're going to be okay. Trust us. So as we prepared into that, it caused us to think about strategy and how actually to approach. But yeah, the pivot I want to approach today is that of absolutely stopping doing everything to everybody and do only what you do well for maybe a smaller set of customers, but do more at the end.
Now, we've all heard of the value of focus on your strengths, and it seems like that's what you did. You did an analysis of what are we best at and where do we really want to scale at with this company. And that's what ended up being, you end up dropping 80%. You don't normally hear that. I know, did anyone say, all right, this is crazy. Like, Guy, why are we going down this road?
Everybody did. But the one thing we've seen when we walked into this situation is that there are a lot of perceptions and concepts, most of them driven by the sentence, probably should hate the most. That's how we always did it. And I don't believe a single person in the company knew the real costs of giving the services as they were given. And when we started, peeling the onion and looking through it, we have seen that there are services that you might as well stay closed than perform. And the second part, we took a really good look at the market. We saw, okay, so let's assume we want to stay. Where do we bring growth from? And at the time, the growth for fulfillment was much higher than the growth for green juice manufacturing. So as scary as it was, as counterintuitive as it was, as I don't know, any other big superlative you can think of, you can probably be sure we went through with our board. The decision was simple once you looked at this from an emotionless, from let's not fall in love with the past. The fact that we did it doesn't mean we'll do it tomorrow. And let's look at cold hard numbers. And yeah, it was very scary, but we chose to do it.
So, Guy, we have a frame for this big business pivot that you were talking about. How did you lead the team through this? We all know that we have to get alignment from others and buy into it, and they have to overcome their fears. And some people hate to change, and they just really aren't ready for this kind of adaptation. But how did you lead through this process?
So I was very, very lucky to have a team that was much more experienced than I am, who basically told me, you need to get this done. It came from the right. My CFO and my head of production both told me flat out, listen, it can be a nice small business. It can support us, but it won't really, and it will always have fire. And you take the risk of one point having to have fire that's too big that will eat up a year's worth of it. So Once I knew I had the two main leads sign off, it was how do we find room for the skills of the people that were with us that we don't want to lose under the assumption that we don't want to lose anyone. How do we transition the workforce? How do we train the workforce from doing this to doing that? Which again, we speak about this now. It's a process that took about 120 days, 180 days before we could even do the first transition step. Not to mention, we had to find a home for every customer because the last thing we wanted to do was to be the ones that destroyed their customer's business because you no longer now have the ability to make your product.
It adds some complexity to that when you have to find a home for current customers because you're no longer offering that service to 80%. What did you learn about your people and people in general about going through something like this?
So I learned that there is usually fear of change, but that fear of change is easily diffused, and that resistance can turn into them being actually champions of the process if you show them the path. If you actually come in and ensure them that personally, they're not going to get it. And not only that, the future will be much better because of factor 1 and 2 and 3, which for us was a better growing industry that will lead us to a much better daily experience, meaning less fire drills, more routine work, and allow us to grow better and almost cleaner in a way. The ops became much less noisy.
Now, Guy just talked about show them the path. Now, another way to say this is you've got to lead by example. You've got to be able to communicate where you're going, what the vision of this is, and you want to show up fully aligned to this. You want to be high energy. You want to be really confident that you can do it. If you're full of fear, they will feel that fear, even if you're trying to mask it. I want to just share this with you because I've seen this so many times before. If you think you can fake it till you make it, I don't think that works. I think people see through it. You want to make sure that you're deeply aligned to what you're doing and how you're going. Now, I'm not saying you have to have it all figured out, but you need to be confident that you will figure it out as a team and as a leader, and that you will overcome the challenges because there will be many that are unforeseen. Now, show them the path really is about how you show up for the team. Back to Guy. And this was 4 or 5 years ago. So this isn't fresh. This isn't something you kind of just went through. Looking back at it now, would you have done anything differently as it related to the culture of the people?
I would probably do things faster, less afraid. Listen, as the owner, as the guy who quote unquote pays the bills, I knew if this fails, we're paying the old price. So I always kept an out. Let's do this, but keep one customer. Let's do this, but keep one service. And my guys tell me, if you're in, let's go. So if I had to do it again, and again, I don't know if it turned okay because I always had that out and people worked confidently. But if anything I would do different, I would probably commit to it more.
Sounds like to me, you had a little bit of that anxiety of 1 foot in, 1 foot out.
Yes, that definitely was the start. And then first customer that comes in and proves you right, everything becomes much easier.
When you were leading through this, what did you learn about yourself?
That I am an adaptive person, and that the team around me is even more adaptive than me. And that, you know what, at the end of the day, a good process run is a good process run, whether it is juice making or shipping boxes. If you run and if you're fair for your team and if you give them transparency and if you trust them, so you come into a turnaround situation. The one thing you don't want to do is delegate, right? You want to hold it close and you want to be the one making all the decisions. It only works that way. You have to trust the team leading it. And even though it's a pivot and even though they didn't do it in the past, well, guess what? So didn't you. And we all learned it together.
You mentioned the word transparency, and it comes up quite a lot on this podcast, and I always like to put a spotlight on it. When you say transparency, what do you mean as it relates to, is it financials? It's a kind of conversations you're having with your team? What does that exactly mean for you?
It's all of the above. So we love to show them these are the customers that we plan on bringing in for the next year so that they can actually see that there is a future to what they're doing. It's very easy for a workforce to get very scared and simply run away. And if you actually treat all of them like minority owners and tell them this is where we're going, even when the times are hard, they'll stick by it. If they go into a dark place not knowing that there's a way out, some may leave. If you show them the path through and you show that you're committed and they're committed and share the successes and the challenges, they'll stick with you.
Now, you said treat them like owners. Does that mean they actually have stock or financial buy-in, or is this something that they feel because they're a part of something?
So technicalities during the turnaround itself didn't allow for them to own, but there was always participation. There was always sharing and going. There was always paying a little bit more than market, because you know what? We're cold and frozen, and they can work in an ambient warehouse making about the same money. So why would they freeze themselves in, right? So we always did that. We're always trying, and I must say, it's much easier now than it was at the beginning to show and town halls and show up and open door and talk to us at any time. During the turnaround, it was just crazy, right? I cannot tell you how many days I finished packing boxes on the line and with them.
Guy, what do we see inside your organization from a culture standpoint that shows that you really want people to be like owners?
Regretfully, it's not enough, and we always have to continue working towards, right? So from a company that was losing money for its first 6 years, we actually started giving bonuses. We're giving them plans for them to see how can they be successful with us. We're allowing them to pay for school. We're encouraging them to go study. All I want, so we have a deal with multiple employees that we vet. Anyone who is willing to sign that they'll stay for 2.5 years after school, we pay for the school. Right? They can go get the education, better themselves. All I want is stick with me after you graduate. Let me benefit from a better educated employee, right? We probably know all their families. We have, I think, either 2 or 3 families that are employed with us. That one person brought a family member, and working together. We're probably launching an ESOP program this year that will allow them to own. Again, beyond the technicalities of actually owning, I want them to feel when we make money, we share, and we do.
You've been talking a lot about the team and this pivot. I want to put the spotlight on you for a second. You've had to evolve as a leader, right? There have been things that you had to let go of and change through this process of navigating a big pivot or a business pivot. What would you say are those things that changed the most?
It's delegation. When you start off, you're super centralized. You're always doing everything. You always want your ears in every discussion and your decision in every paper that goes out of anywhere. We had a good effort of recruiting a great team, but it was on me to allow them to make decisions and accept when they make their mistakes. So when we started off, our CFO told me the best sentence ever that's walking with me since. That you need to go sell. Leave the building. We got it. Will we do everything like you do? Probably not. Will we make mistakes? Probably yes. But we'll have best intentions and we'll succeed. It will not look the same as if you did it, but eventually it will. So go. And from that to get into the production and the finance and the sales and the analytics, which were all my quote unquote babies. And now I'm here more of a supervision rather than doing. That's where you get the best ideas for the next thing, not when you're reacting every hour to different emergencies.
Well said. I really appreciate you being here, Guy, to share your perspective of what you've been through and telling us about NutriFresh and all of the things that you've done. Really great conversation.
Thank you. And the one thing, if I may add, as long as you enjoy it, it's going to be good.
Well, this is a chance for me to reflect back on what you just heard. I love to be able to do this while Guy's listening in here, but every company goes through changes. And if you have people that are willing to go with that, it's going to be a lot easier and cheaper for you. Replacing your people is just really usually impossible to do at this time anyway. But you want to make sure that you're leading effectively. You make people feel like owners. And that's more than just about the financial tools. It really is about how they feel about their job and about their coworkers and about the mission that the company's on. And are they completely aligned? Does it feel fulfilling to them? There's so much to it. I unpack this inside of a lot of the conversations I have. But let me ask you this question. If you are listening into this and you're going to be, I wish I was a stronger leader. I know there's some things that we aren't doing as well as what Guy mentioned here. I'd love to talk to you about what that means. I've been doing this for a decade, and I love to be able to work with founders and CEOs to help them identify what's getting in their way so that they can move forward. And it's absolutely no cost to you. All you have to do is go to genehammett.com, schedule your call, and we'll talk about what's really going on inside your business and what it takes for you to continue the growth, no matter what it is. Just go to genehammett.com and schedule your call today. When you think about growth and you think about leadership, think about Grow Think Tank. As always, lead with courage. We'll see you next time.